What are the different proofs that are currently used in the crypto industry? And what are some of the examples of cryptocurrencies that use these different proofs? For example, delegated proof of stake, proof of authority, federated Byzantine agreement, nominated proof of staked authority, proof of history, zero knowledge proofs, proof of capacity, proof of space and time, proof of storage, and proof of importance. So there are a lot of them, without including the big two in that list as well. And proofs are essentially consensus mechanisms, so the way in which a cryptocurrency operates. And put simply, they're the way that the blockchain is coordinated, so how its nodes or validators work, what conditions are put upon them, how they verify and record transactions, etc. So if you were creating your own cryptocurrency, the question I think would be interesting to ask yourself as you watch this video would be, which proof would you choose for your project and why? And I'll add chapters in the description for this video that you should also be able to see along the timeline here if you wanted to jump to a particular proof that you were interested in. So please do like this video and subscribe to the channel so I can continue to offer more content for you in future. And let's jump straight in and take a look at some of the proofs that exist in the crypto market today. Proof of work and proof of stake are the most common and well-known proofs that exist, as they actually dominate 78% of the cryptocurrency market at the time of recording this video, with the larger consensus mechanism being proof of work, which we'll take a look at now, mainly due to the most obvious cryptocurrency that uses proof of work, which is Bitcoin, which dominates the crypto market overall. But there are other examples, such as Litecoin, Dogecoin, Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum Classic, Casper, Bitcoin SV, and even the privacy coin Monero, which uses the random X proof of work algorithm. And we'll see Monero again a bit later when we look at zero knowledge proofs. So let's take a look at what proof of work is, which I covered in my Introduction to Cryptocurrency Part 1 video that you can find the link to here and in the description if you felt you wanted more of a grounding in it. But proof of work is a decentralized consensus mechanism that requires network members to put in some work, hence the name proof of work, to solve a complex puzzle or encrypted hexadecimal number, which needs powerful computers to do this. It's also called mining, in reference to receiving a reward for the work that's done, whereby new blocks and new proof of work cryptocurrencies, or bitcoins for example, are created. And this allows a distributed ledger to be formed where nodes or miners verify transactions and add them to the blockchain. And I'm not going to go into too much technical detail here, but Bitcoin, as the crypto market's largest cryptocurrency, uses the hashing algorithm called SHA-256, which takes an input of basically any length and produces a 256-bit long hash output, which ensures the security and reliability of the blockchain. And you can see an example of that here, where I've added in an input in the top box, which could be anything essentially. And I do apologize for that ridiculously bad joke, by the way. But that input produces a 256-bit long hash output using the SHA-256 algorithm. And the output will change depending on what input you add in, even if I simply remove the full stop at the end, for example, with no two inputs that can lead to the same hash output. And this is essentially why you need powerful computers to try to solve the puzzle that I mentioned before. Two of the main advantages of proof of work are decentralization and security. With proof of work, the whole network verifies your transaction rather than one entity like a bank or even a small group of centralized validators. So the idea is for you to be able to hold your own money and decide what you do with it, rather than leaving this with a third party, which is one of the key aims of cryptocurrencies. And this is referred to as decentralisation. There are also some disadvantages of proof of work technology. Firstly, in that you need a lot of electricity to run all the computers required, although the efficiency and sustainability of the Bitcoin network is improving all the time. And I actually did a video on that from a report by the Bitcoin Mining Council that you can see here, and I've put it in the description as well. And secondly, it's difficult to scale proof of work cryptocurrencies, with some projects having to adapt slightly to improve this aspect of their network and their blockchain. Because when you look at the crypto trilemma, you can't have all three aspects of maximum decentralization, security and scalability. Even though a lot of projects claim they do, there will normally be a downfall. And we'll see in this video some projects which are adopting more than one proof or consensus mechanism to try to achieve this. And let's now take a look at the proof of stake consensus mechanism, with examples being cryptocurrencies such as Ethereum, Cardano, Avalanche, Toncoin, Injective, etc. And proof of stake requires users of a network to stake and hold a certain number of coins or tokens to become a validator, with validators normally chosen based on the number of staked crypto they have. Validators are usually chosen at random with proof of stake to confirm transactions and validate blocks. Validators can then earn a portion of the transaction fees as a reward for staking their crypto and essentially helping the network. It's therefore less competitive than the proof of work consensus mechanism and requires less computational power in order to operate. Because of the way proof of stake is set up, with validators required to hold a certain amount of that crypto, it can be seen to be more centralized, especially if there aren't that many validators, which is the case with some crypto projects, because there are then fewer people or entities who are validating the blockchain and are deciding how it operates. So please do check this out when you're doing your own research, with generally, the more validators the better in terms of decentralization. Validators also vote on outcomes and governance, so the security is maintained more through community control with proof of stake. There are also several different proof of stake mechanisms that exist, some but not all of which we'll see in this video, as there are quite a few. And if we return back to the crypto trilemma briefly, and this is a broad generalization as it's more nuanced and each project is different, but proof of stake projects tend to be more scalable, energy efficient, and have faster and cheaper transactions, with proof of work networks having more security and decentralization normally. And you also have a consensus mechanism which is very similar to proof of stake, but which is called delegated proof of stake. And the difference here is that rather than anyone being able to become a validator, token holders vote for a limited number of delegates who are then responsible for validating transactions and creating new blocks for them. Delegators create blocks in a round-robin order, and when an elected delegator receives a reward having done so, this is then shared with those people who voted for them. So blocks tend to be produced faster in delegated proof of stake. However, it is more centralized than proof of stake as there are fewer validators. Delegated proof of stake is used by cryptocurrencies such as Tron, EOS, and Lisk. Next up, we have the consensus mechanism called proof of authority. It's quite different to proof of work and proof of stake, and it was proposed in 2017 by Ethereum co-founder Gavin Wood, who then went on to set up Polkadot and Kusama. And the proof of authority consensus allows only a few validators or nodes, which are essentially decided on based on their identity, who they are, their reputation, and the trust they've built up, rather than how much they stake or put in. It's therefore a highly centralized but scalable model because there are fewer block validators, hence the name proof of authority. And it is particularly useful for private organizations, such as logistics companies, for example, who wish to maintain their privacy while taking advantage of blockchain technology, with Microsoft Azure, a cloud computing platform run by Microsoft, being just one example of a company that uses this consensus mechanism. So proof of authority is energy efficient as it doesn't require mining that proof of work requires, or the large staking capital that proof of stake requires, but it certainly falls down on decentralisation and even security. And the most commonly known cryptocurrency that uses proof of authority, that's a leader in supply chain management and the Internet of Things through real-world adoption of blockchain technology, is VeChain. And as we've just seen a consensus mechanism that doesn't prioritise staking, it would be amiss not to mention the cryptocurrency Ripple, which uses an alternative consensus mechanism called the Federated Byzantine Agreement, or FBA. This model doesn't require staking or mining to validate and record transactions. Instead, it relies on a trusted list of validator nodes called the Unique Node List, or UNL. And moving on now from proof of authority, there are some cryptocurrencies that, probably quite confusingly, use a mix of different proofs to operate. And an example of that is the BNB chain, of which BNB is the native cryptocurrency, which uses a combination of proof of stake, actually delegated proof of stake, and proof of authority, which we've already seen in this video. And they've called this proof of staked authority. And the BNB chain itself is quite confusing, because it's composed of two blockchains itself, the BNB Beacon chain and the BNB Smart chain. The Beacon chain is responsible for governance of the BNB chain, and it manages staking and voting, whereas the Smart chain is the blockchain that's EVM compatible, consensus layers, and has connections to the multi-chain, so it's more operational. And as you can see, there's much more to it that I won't go into in this video, but the proof of staked authority consensus mechanism is used by the BNB chain so that blocks are produced by a limited set of validators. There are therefore fewer validators on the BNB chain than on some other blockchains, which does make it centralized and is the proof of authority aspect to the consensus mechanism. The aim here is apparently to ensure that bad actors don't become validators by staking a large amount of BNB and being able to manage a high transaction volume across fewer validators who are known to them. Validators also take turns to produce blocks using proof of authority. And finally, validators are elected in and out based on a staking-based governance, which is where the proof of stake blockchain network governance comes in. And let's look at another example of a cryptocurrency that's had a bit of a mix of proofs in Polkadot, which started off as proof of authority, as you can see here, with initially only 6 validators, until it had enough staked validators to grow this number. Because at this stage, if you held DOT, you could only signal your intent to validate and stake on the network, with you often having to lock up your DOT for 96 weeks, or nearly 2 years, as a bond, while new parachains were bidding to form part of the Polkadot ecosystem through auctions. And you could only signal your intent to back specific validators with elections that then took place from all of the nominations. Which leads us on to the next phase for Polkadot, because it's now what is called nominated proof of stake, which it transitions to after being proof of authority, with the number of validators increasing slightly. And nominated proof of stake, as you can see here, is similar to delegated proof of stake, but with nominated proof of stake, if you nominate a bad validator, you can actually lose your stake, which you can't in the other one. And finally, in this section where cryptocurrency networks seem unable to stick to just one proof, let's look at Solana, which uses the proof of stake consensus mechanism, so validators stake their soul as collateral for the chance to earn rewards by helping and validating the blockchain. But it actually looks to improve this consensus mechanism by using another proof called proof of history, which adds an element of time, which a lot of other consensus mechanisms simply don't have. With Solana co-founder Anatoly Yakovenko publishing a white paper in November 2017 describing the proof of history concept, which I'll include a link to in the description should you want to check that out. And this essentially involves the use of timestamps as evidence of when a block was created at a specific time. This verifies that a transaction took place at a specific time and creates a historical record, hence the name proof of history. This creates proof and a verified order for and a passage of time between the different transactions. These transactions are then hashed using the SHA-256 hashing algorithm that we saw earlier in this video with Bitcoin before being added into the ledger and the blockchain. But because it takes time to complete this hashing process, it doesn't matter as there's a record through the timestamps of when the transactions took place, which means that the advantage of adding timestamps is that it allows for more transactions to be verified very quickly. But let's now move on to the next proof, which is zero knowledge proofs, of which there are actually several types, which I'm not going to go into in this video. But this consensus mechanism is used by some cryptocurrency networks to improve transaction privacy and scalability. Basically, they allow for anonymous transactions without disclosing details of the transaction or the identity of the users. Other use cases can be with things like passwords and electronic voting systems, for example, where you can still access what you need to, or you can submit your vote, but without having to disclose the password or who you voted for. So essentially, it's about protecting the privacy of the user's information through data transfer and verification. Even the privacy coin Monero, which, as I mentioned previously, uses proof of work, it also uses bullet proofs, which are a type of zero knowledge proof, in order to reduce the size of confidential transactions, improving scalability and reducing transaction fees. And another privacy coin, Zcash, also uses proof of work, although it's planning to follow in Ethereum's footsteps in early 2024 apparently, by migrating to a proof of stake consensus mechanism. But it too uses zero knowledge proofs to ensure the privacy of its transactions and its users. Other cryptocurrencies that use elements of zero knowledge proofs are Near Protocol, Immutable, and Mina Protocol. But zero knowledge proofs have their disadvantages as they are complex, so they're resource intensive, and they can lead to slower transactions and more energy use. And let's now look at Polygon, which uses proof of stake because in July of 2022, it actually introduced the zero knowledge scaling system, which is fully compatible with the EVM, or Ethereum virtual machine, with it then taking nearly a year for them to publicly implement this. But this consensus mechanism incorporates all of Polygon's existing smart contracts, its developer tools, and its wallets, and it uses advanced cryptography called zero knowledge proofs, which we've just seen, by batching transactions into groups, which are then sent to the Ethereum network as a single bulk transaction. The transaction fee can then be split among all of the participants involved, therefore reducing gas fees quite significantly, with the aim of increasing scalability and lowering transaction costs. And Polygon is calling this Polygon ZK EVM, which stands for Zero Knowledge Ethereum Virtual Machine. The next consensus mechanism has quite a few names, so I'm going to cover them all together, as they're called proof of capacity, proof of space and time, and proof of storage. And they're quite unique as they involve miners, like with proof of work, but they actually rely on the digital storage space that's left on the miner's computer as a requirement to participate in the network. The time element of this is just adding a time frame. So for example, you could provide 2 terabytes of storage per month to the network. And generally speaking, the larger the storage, the space, or the capacity the miner provides, the more likely it is to solve the cryptographic puzzle and then generate the next block. So it's a good use of storage space if you have it, consumes less energy than proof of work mining, but it hasn't been tested a lot, so we can't be sure how it will fare in the future under attacks and hacks. And cryptocurrencies that use this consensus mechanism include Filecoin and Chia. And the last consensus mechanism that we'll look at in this video is called proof of importance, which is a development of the proof of stake consensus mechanism. And it's used by the cryptocurrency NEM. So rather than it just being about how much you stake on the network, as it is with proof of stake, proof of importance gives you a score essentially based on your activity and contribution to the network. So it's not about the size of your stake, it's what you do with it which is important. Inevitably though, one of the downsides is that the more you can stake, the more activity and contribution you can make anyway. So it may not solve the issue of a fairer system where the whales are not solely in charge. So that ends this video looking at the different crypto proofs and consensus mechanisms. But as always, I'd love to know what you think in the comments below. And if you're interested in more of a tailored approach to your crypto education, and you think you'd benefit from having someone look over your shoulder and guide you on your journey, I do offer one-to-one coaching to those who have the desire and the means to educate themselves further. And there are links in the description where you can message me and book in a free video call to see if we'd be in a good fit. And if you found this content interesting, please do like the video and subscribe to the channel, as it really does help, and have a great day.